Okay. Well, let's call this board meeting to order, October 14th. I am present. Lenore Newsom. Here. Rodney Richmond is not here. Clint Boone.
Here.
Lynn Fouché.
Here.
Brian Jolly.
Here.
Harold Simpson.
Here.
Beth Ann Davenport.
Here.
And then I will turn it over to Ashley and the judge and go from there.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, board members. First item on your agenda this morning, styled before the Arkansas State Board of Pharmacy in the matter of Jonathan Reagan, PD number 07823. The case number is 2025-047. For the record, my name is Charlie Moulton. I'll be acting as the hearing officer for this proceeding. Would counsel be so kind as to identify themselves for the record?
Ashley Vales, General Counsel for the Arkansas State Board of Pharmacy.
Thank you both. Let me go ahead and take judicial notice of both the statutes as well as the rules that are governing this hearing. Arkansas Code annotated section 17-92-101 at sequence, as well as the Arkansas Administrative Procedures Act. I've got Mr. Quinn, do I need to go over the hearing process with your client?
No, sir.
I assume you had already done that. And I appreciate it, and how the board does in terms of expediting matters. I've got a packet in front of me. It consists of 21 exhibits, and there might be some addendums to that, Ms. Vales, is that right?
There could be some addendums right now. There's not any. Those are the board's exhibits 1 through 21 that I would ask to be admitted.
Okay.
None additional to that at this time.
All right, on the left-hand part of the binder, there's exhibit 7, exhibit 8.
Those are part of the exhibits, yes.
Okay, so they're not additional, they're
They're
just
not additional. I've
excerpts?
pulled them out just
Okay.
for reference for the
Understood.
board to navigate easier.
All right, thank you. Mr. O'Quinn, any objection to the admission of staff's exhibit 1 through 21?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. Without objection, exhibits 1 through 21 are admitted. Mr. O'Quinn, did you bring any documents with you this morning that you would like the board to take a look at?
Yes, we previously provided, and they're on the electronic format, exhibits 1 through 11.
1 through 11?
And I'll have paper copies for the court reporter
All right.
at some point in time.
They're on the tablet.
Oh, they're on the tablet?
Mhm.
All right. Any objection to the admission of respondents 1 through 11?
Can I reserve any objections during the testimony?
Well, I don't know if you can reserve objections if I admit it or not admit it. So you can object now before I admit it.
Okay, there's 2 exhibits that have issue with. No, I'll withdraw that. I'm sorry. I'll withdraw.
All right.
I have no objection.
Thank you very much. Without objection, respondents exhibit 1 through 11 are admitted. Board members, do you need an opportunity to go through some of these documents?
I have
before-
one question.
Yes.
The 11 exhibits that were submitted, Mr. O'Quinn, are those in our book or are they only on the
Tablet.
tablet?
The tablet.
Okay,
That's
They're
correct.
under O'Quinn exhibits.
okay, thank you.
But are there only 9?
There's 10 or 11 or-
Oh,
You have to scroll.
Board members, what would you like to do? Would you like to go off the record and review some of these documents? Or would you like to gravitate into opening statements, testimony? What's the prerogative of the board?
Agree.
All right, we'll go ahead and review these documents. Why don't we go ahead, we'll go off the,
no,
Oh, we can go
proceed and then kind of
okay.
review because
Proceed.
we don't know exactly what we need to look at yet.
All right. Mr. O'Quinn, Ms. Vales, do you have an opening statement?
I have Not really an opening statement, but I do want to explain that the notebook, we don't usually use notebooks, but the records are so extensive, I thought I would save everybody's fingers. So we will go over all these exhibits, and if you want to team up and share the notebook and somebody navigate and somebody else, point all this stuff out, because we're going to be going through all this pretty extensively. If you get to a point where you don't know where we are, please stop me and let me know. We're also going to throw some things up on the screen to highlight some pages, but again, just stop me if you have no idea where we are, because there's a lot here. So just let me know.
Mr. Quinn? Anything in terms of an opening from you, sir?
No, sir.
All right. How many witnesses do you have, Ms. Rios?
One.
Just one, Mr. Quinn?
One.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead. They're both here. Let's swear you both in. Doctor, if you could, do you swear affirm the testimony about to give in this hearing is going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen. All right, then, Ms. Mills, please proceed.
All right, I'm gonna call Dr. Holland as my only witness. And Dr. Holland, I'm gonna call you Brandon as your
That's fine.
preference.
Thank you.
And you are, tell the board what your job title here is at the state board is.
Board inspector investigator.
As part of your duties as an inspector investigator, did you have reason to investigate the pharmacy where Jonathan Reagan worked?
Yes, it was time for a routine inspection, but we had also received a complaint from a patient.
And based on that patient complaint, did that give rise to the expediting the investigation or the inspection?
Not necessarily. I mean, it was due as a routine inspection anyways, but it did give us an opportunity to get in there, make it a little bit more of a priority.
And ultimately, was the patient complaint able to be founded?
Not necessarily, but it did open up a lot of additional things that we were able to find through this investigation.
Did you look a little bit deeper than you would on a regular routine investigation because of this patient complaint?
Not due to the patient complaint, no.
Okay. Let's start with some of these exhibits. Let me turn your attention to exhibit number 2. Can you identify for the board what exhibit number 2 is?
Exhibit number 2 are the board inspection reports from 2018 to 2025. There are 6 total inspections there.
And of these inspections, you did not conduct all of these inspections, correct?
I did not. I conducted 4 of the 6.
Okay. Is there anything regarding these inspections over the years that you would like to highlight for the board that were concerning to you?
So 2018, that was an inspection completed by Dr. Cindy Fain. And at that point, that was actually a failed inspection where she did a subsequent follow-up inspection in July of 2019. And of these 6 inspections, 5 of those inspections document expired, outdated medications. In 2018, if you look at the 2018 inspection report, I believe they're on line 3. That will be the first inspection report and then exhibit number 2. So on the back page of that, line number 3, you can see that Dr. Fain documented that Dr. Reagan needed to document compounding, include the expiration date of the chemicals, as well as a beyond use date of the completed product. So that carried on in 2022. You'll see that there were also some notes about compounding. That's where I noted that compounding documentation needed to include a date of preparation, an assigned beyond use date, the name of the person that compounded and verified the product, and that no commercially available products may be prepared without a specific medical necessity. And also stated that if it was not being prepared in a batch, that a new compounding record would need to be used each time. I think I also noted here in 2022 that patient labeling needed to indicate per board rules that this was a compounded preparation. And it also needed to include the beyond use date for the patient, so they knew what date that they should not use that product beyond. In 2023, I inspected Dr. Reagan again. And at that time, I again discussed avoiding compounding commercially available products. This time, it was more of a conversation regarding dosing convenience or cost savings. I educated that the method identified in the law book is to show when a product is not commercially available, which gives you an ability to compound. That's by going in, showing that from wholesaler screens that that product is not available. And at that time, products were still not being labeled as compounded preparations because he had not ordered the auxiliary labels that we had potentially discussed as an option to indicate compounded preparation. But he did state he was writing the beyond use date on the label at that time. So in 2024, didn't really have any compounding observations at that time. 2025, that was my most recent inspection, which was July 22nd of 2025. And that's when I observed products were still not labeled as compounded preparations. I did not see a beyond use date on anything that was in the will call bin. And I noticed at that time that there were compounded preparations that either had ingredients missing, that included an expired ingredient. So at that time, I made the decision that I was going to go ahead and pull compounding records and do a deeper investigation into the compounding records.
Before we move on from these inspections, would you say on some of these, there are repeated observations that were concerning to you? Is that a fair statement?
It is.
And were some of those things like using expired medications? Is there any others that you recall being repeated observations?
So I would say the expired medications would be more expired medications in stock. Not necessarily, I can't confirm or deny prior to this time that those were being used, but that would just be an active inventory, so not separated or segregated from the other products.
Okay. All right. And patient number 3, can you identify for the record what that is?
So Exhibit 3 is the complaint we received from the patient's parent in July. So the complaint stated that their daughter was shorted on her medication over several months. They stated that their daughter had surgery and was prescribed oxycodone solution and diazepam solution, and that they were running out early each time. The parent further explained that their daughter had a temporary NG tube, so there was not a chance the dose was being wasted or spit out. And Dr. Reagan, I believe in his technician, responded to that, saying that the family was actually requesting early refills on a different medication, and that nothing was ever brought up about the oxycodone or diazepam.
And so we didn't find any, we could not verify this complaint. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay, let's move on to exhibit number 4. Can you identify for the record and for the board members what exhibit number 4 is?
So exhibit number 4 will be the dispensing records of the pharmacy. So what I did is I extracted all of the compounded preparations, so the compounded non-sterile preparations from the dispensing report. So there were 479 from a time period of 7/1 of 2024 through 7/28 of 2025. There were a total of 910 compounded non-sterile preparations. Of those 910 non-sterile preparations, 479 were controlled substances. And then with Exhibit 5 is actually the non-controlled substance compounded preparations.
Okay, and that is the complete list of what you reviewed.
That is the complete list of compounded preparations, yes.
And did you go back at one point to the pharmacy to make sure you had all the records?
I did. I actually touched base, I believe it was August 12th with Dr. Reagan. I wanted to go back to the pharmacy to make sure I had not missed any records. Didn't want to exclude anything if there were any additional records, and he confirmed that there were no additional records at that time.
What date did you go back and check about the records?
I believe that was August the 12th of 2025.
All right, so let's turn now to then exhibit 6. Can you identify for the board what exhibit 6 is?
So exhibit 6 are all of the compounding records that I obtained from Dr. Reagan on those 2 inspections. So on the July 22nd date, I believe, which was when I did the initial inspection, I did have some records that I brought back at that time. And then when I went back on August the 12th, there were a few additional records that I obtained from Dr. Reagan at that time. These are copies of all of those compounding records that I reviewed.
All right, so let's look at these records. What, when you're reviewing these as part of an inspection, what items should be in these compounding records?
So when I'm looking at a compounding record, I'm confirming that it has a name, strength, concentration, name, strength or concentration, dosage form for the product that's being prepared. I'm making sure that there's a date of preparation because that's going to be important for when the product was made. So you can assign an accurate beyond use date, which is also a requirement. I'm looking for some kind of identification number, whether that be a prescription number or a lot number for that product that was made, who was involved in preparing the product, who verified the product. I'm also looking for the NDC, the lot number, the manufacturer, amount used for all of the ingredients, a weight for the ingredients, total amount compounded, if there are any special storage requirements beyond storing at room temperature, any kind of specific calculations that may be necessary to prepare that product, and if there's any kind of additional quality procedures that should be carried out, like a certain pH, checking to make sure the pH is within a certain range, and a reference to the master formulation record.
And of these records, 201 records, how many did you find had some discrepancy or error?
So of the 201 records reviewed, I identified at least 109 records with some type of error or discrepancy, so around 54% of the records.
Okay, can we look at a specific example of one that you found contained an error?
I think we can get into it when we get into the exhibits.
Okay.
There were some discrepancies here, just to tell you that I really can't say. This number could be a lot larger, to be quite honest, and I could probably share at this point and show.
Yeah, share.
So one of the things here that I was finding,
Okay.
yeah, I'll zoom in. I know this is, oh goodness, I know this is really hard to see for you guys. But if you'll take a look here, you'll look at this bottom line here. I'm sorry, what's up? Okay, are you guys able to see there where the cursor is on the screen here? So you see the lot number for the product there.
You know what that means? I don't know.
You can't see it on
Everybody's looking
there.
at a
Yeah, you
different
can't see it
one.
on there. Okay, so the A84809, that's assigned to an ingredient LAPA layer. When I go to this next compounding log, it's assigned to LAPA layer and diethylene glycol. When I go to this next compounding log, it's applied to Pentravan Plus. So I don't know what that lot number actually is. I don't know what that lot number is. It's assigned to 3 different chemicals. So I don't know. I can't say.
And that would be impossible for a product to have,
Multiple products have
multiple
a
products to have
same lot
one
number.
lot number.
That's correct.
Okay.
It's possible for the same product, same product to have
But we're talking about different.
different products. These
ingredients
are
here.
different ingredients, yes.
And so what concerned you when you looked at that?
So I don't really know, looking at these records, I don't know what it's really hard to tell.
Fair enough. Okay. Let's go then, if you are ready to go to Exhibit 7.
Okay.
Identify for the board what Exhibit 7 is.
So Exhibit 7 is where I reviewed these compounding records and determined that an incorrect ingredient was used. And this is where, if you look in that front pocket of your binder that you have there, I try to make this a little easier for you guys. That way we're not having to flip back and forth in the book. You can take that and match that up to Exhibit 7 there.
And
Those-
so
those-
the table here in the book
Mhm.
is also the same table that's in the front pocket of the board.
And to let you know where it says compounding record page number in that farthest right column there, that is actually the compounding record number, not the page number, but the compounding record number that you can reference as we look at this exhibit.
And so when you reviewed these, what kind of errors or what kind of wrong ingredients did you find that were being used?
So what I'm looking at is, as I'm checking these in the pharmacy, or if I bring them back and look at them, I'm looking at the lot number, expiration date of these products, what's written down. I'm checking everything. And I noticed some of these numbers didn't seem to make sense. I had never seen that number for another ingredient. So I'm looking at the lot number for testosterone. I'm looking at the lot number for estradiol. And that's when I noticed, if you guys will take a look here at the screen. So I'm going to zoom in here on this testosterone. If you can see where my cursor is here. Those last four numbers, and if you want to look in your binder, that'll be compounding record number 5. You'll see that the last four numbers in that are 8066. I'm going to go to this next compounding record. You'll also see that the last four numbers there are 80066. The last 5, 80066. That says testosterone. Now, when I look at the actual chemical here, 80066, that's estradiol. That's not testosterone. You guys see that? Testosterone that was in stock at the time was actually 0013. But the compounding record says 80066, which is actually estradiol. So estradiol was used in place of testosterone.
And so what's the ramifications to the patient that received this compounded product with wrong ingredient?
It's hard to say. I mean, they're not going to get the desired outcome that they're looking for. I mean, this could be used in a male, it could be used in a female. If it's a male, it's probably a lot worse because they're getting the estrogenic effects. Sometimes in a female, testosterone is used. So, but that could be more testosterone than what is desired.
All right. Anything else you want to add with regard to these wrong ingredients? How many, you found this at least 10 times, correct? 10 occurrences where the wrong ingredient was used?
Yes, and at least 6 of those, I believe 7. Let's see, 7 of those, they were hormone related. One was testosterone in the place of progesterone. And if you look there, what I tried to do in your book that you have is I tried to show that the chemicals that we had available. And if I did not have a chemical available, I tried to show you a COA where it had the lot number for the product that was used.
All right, anything you want to add with regard to Exhibit 7?
Not unless there are any questions from the board on that.
Okay. Then let's turn to Exhibit 8. Can you identify for the board what Exhibit 8 is?
Yes, Exhibit 8 is where I documented anytime an expired ingredient was used. And there I documented 21 different expired ingredients and 13 different compounded non-sterile preparations.
And that is reflected in the summary table in the notebook as well as in the front.
That is correct.
Okay. And what is the ramifications for the patient if they are prepared or if they're given a compounded product with an expired ingredient?
May not work as well. I mean, these are things that have been exposed to moisture for a very long time, so it can act very differently. One here, an example that I'll point you to on the board or on the TV here was ketotifen that was used. So you can see here that this ketotifen expired 5/31 of 24. So 5/31 of 24. And if you'll look at that lot number, the last 4 numbers are 0028. So if I go up here and look at my compounding record, lot number 0028, 5/31/26. So not only was that an expired ingredient, but the expiration date was also falsified. I also have that with testosterone or methyl testosterone as well. So with the methyl,
That's the next page in
that
the,
is the next page in the book, if you want to look in the book. That would be compounding record number 4. So if you look at the methyl testosterone there, which you may actually be able to see much easier in your book, you can see that that actually expired on 7/31/22. You can follow that lot number that's on the left side of the picture there over to the compounding record on the other page and see that the expiration date was entered as 10/20 of 2028, I believe is what that says. 2025, sorry, it's a little blurry. 10/20 of 2025. So over 3 years past its original expiration date. There were other products in here where the expiration date were falsified or it was just entered as an expired ingredient. And again, I included records, certificates of analysis, or photos from what chemicals were available at time of inspection to show you what was available for me to see. Same thing, if you get over to compounding record 109, that's going to be towards the back of the exhibit. 109, you'll see that the cyclobenzaprine was given an expiration date of April of 2026. But if you look on the next page, you'll see that that expired in June of 2022.
all right, let's move to Exhibit 9. Identify for the board and the record what Exhibit 9 is.
Exhibit 9 will be similar to Exhibit 8, but this is just where an expiration date was falsified. As we mentioned, the ketotifen being extended out 2 years. In that table there, I show you what the actual expiration date was of the ingredient that was used versus what he included on the compounding record. So you'll see that some of those were extended 2 years, some were 3 years, some were by a year. But all of those were falsified expiration dates for these chemicals.
Did you have an example you wanted to show on the screen for this one?
I think it was still within the ketotifen, the methyl testosterone, both of those show in the exhibits there that they expired well before the date entered.
And some of these records with the falsified expiration dates, you discovered after you had been there the first time, is that correct?
That's correct.
So explain that, what you saw after you came back on the 12th of August.
So when I came back on the 12th of August, Dr. Reagan had changed computer softwares. I think he felt pretty confident that the compounding record would look a little better from what he previously had. And within the first 2 compounding records that I reviewed, I noticed that expired ketotifen was used based on the lot number that was entered there with a falsified expiration date and the methyl testosterone. So that was something I noticed immediately.
Still ongoing problems from the first visit to the second.
That's
visit.
correct.
Okay. All right, let's turn to Exhibit 10. Identify for the board and the record what Exhibit 10 is.
Exhibit 10 would be compounding records that have missing ingredients. So compounded preparations that I would expect to have ingredients missing. Some of these are because testosterone, estradiol was used in place of testosterone, but others were because a chemical was just simply left out.
Can you highlight an example of that for the board?
I can. So I think compounding record 19, if you'll actually look in your exhibit there, compounding record 19. Hopefully everybody's been able to identify where that number is there on the page. E3. So if you look at that compounding record, a little hard to see there, but that compounding record actually says E3. E3 is estriol, not estradiol. And this is something that I've been trying to tell people for quite some time, that really we don't need to use E2, E3, E1, all that, because people don't know that language. T3, T4, we know that because we're pharmacists, but everybody else doesn't know that language. So here's a great example of how things get mixed up. We say E3, which should have been estriol, but estradiol was used, so E2. And if you know anything about E2, estradiol, it's actually 10 times potent as estriol. So a lot more potent than estriol,
And so that would have ramifications for the patient that received that product.
potentially.
Okay.
Another one that I would like to highlight is this topical cream here. That would actually be on compounding record 31031. So that was supposed to have ketamine, gabapentin, diclofenac, cyclobenzaprine, and bupivacaine, according to the compounding record. But if you look at that next page, which is actually the prescription, it shows you there's also supposed to be baclofen in that, which if you look at that compounding record, there's no baclofen. And actually the cyclobenzaprine, the lot number written down for that is diclofenac. So diclofenac shows to actually be used twice. So that would have doubled the concentration of the diclofenac and not actually included any cyclobenzaprine in that. And again, baclofen's not included in that as well. So 2 ingredients missing from that.
All right, let's move on to the next exhibit if you're ready.
Unless the board has any questions you guys have or clarification, please. This is a lot of information. I understand that. Please let me know and I'll be glad to further explain.
They really can't do that in the middle if you're examining, you know.
Okay.
What, identify what exhibit 11 is.
So exhibit 11 would be compounding records where identified a wrong strength, concentration, or amount was made. So here there were 42 occurrences where I found either a strength was incorrect, concentration was incorrect, or amount made didn't make sense with what the compounding record said.
And the table in the front is your summary of what's missing.
That's correct. And unfortunately, it's 3 pages long, or 3 or 4 pages long. I apologize for that. But just to highlight a couple from this. So this is compounding record 7. If you want to look at compounding record 7 there, you'll see that we have a couple issues here. First of all, estradiol was used instead of testosterone. But even if testosterone would have been used, it was supposed to have a final concentration of 4 milligrams per gram. The compounding record indicates 360 milligrams were used, which would have produced a 24 milligram per gram final strength, 6 times as potent, but ended up being 6 times as potent estradiol rather than testosterone because the wrong ingredient was used. I also have another record there, compounding record number 12, which is actually on the back page of that compounding record number 7. This is very similar. It should have been a testosterone 4 milligram per gram. 23 grams would have been made. This actually ended up being a 24 milligram per gram instead of 4 milligrams per gram. Testosterone was actually used in this one, or appears to be documented as used in this compounding record.
Okay, let's move on to exhibit 12.
I got,
That one.
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
So compounding record 173. So I have a couple issues with compounding record 173. If you look at the quantity made there in the top, it says there's a quantity made of 30. But if you look at quantity dispensed, it says 90. So I can't tell how many were made. Were 30 made or were 90 made? I don't know. I can't say. If you look at the amount used, 97 milligrams of liothyronine. Again, if we go back to our training as pharmacists, T3 is the more active hormone when it comes to thyroid hormones. It shows 97 milligrams of T3 was used. So if we divide that out, that's 9,700 micrograms. Even if that were in 90 capsules, that's 107.8 micrograms per capsule, more than 4 times the amount that was needed. If it were only 30 capsules made, that's 323.3 micrograms per capsule. Again, I can't say if 30 or 90 were made based on this. I can't tell you.
What's the ramification if the patient got the product like it describes in the record?
There could be several issues. This patient could be having palpitations. They could go back to their physician and maybe it appears that they have an overactive thyroid, which could start a whole cascade of issues.
Okay. All right, now, sorry, exhibit 12, identify for the board what that is.
So exhibit 12 would be where I identified any items that showed an inappropriate assignment of beyond use date. And in review of the records, I determined that was somewhere around 42 occurrences. And I'll tell you, a lot of this is based on, if you look at certain things, yes, there are certain things that are given 7, 8 months plus, certain things with 180 days that are water containing. But a big thing for me is if you're dispensing, if you assign a 30-day beyond use date to something, you don't dispense a 90-day supply. You don't dispense a 75, an 85-day supply to a patient if it's only good for 30 days. That doesn't make sense. That's not something you do. So that was the majority of these. By comparing the compounding record with the dispensing records of the pharmacy, I was able to see that it was assigned a 30-day beyond use date, but patient actually received what was considered a 75-day supply.
To the patients that would be receiving these compounded medications, what would be the ramifications for them if they're using this with a beyond use date that's been inappropriately assigned?
If it maintains if it could fall out of suspension, the active ingredients could change. Don't really know.
All right, we'll move on. Exhibit 13, can you identify for the board what exhibit 13 is?
So exhibit 13 is where I identified like incorrect units of measure. So that could be something as simple as, just to show you here on these examples that I have here on the screen. If you look at this, it says 23 grams of cream were made here, but 25 milligrams of base were used. It's not possible. That's probably Scrivener's error, but still, in the grand scheme of things, this is just consistently issues throughout the compounding records.
All right, exhibit 14, can you identify what that record is?
So exhibit 14 will be compounding records that I identified as incomplete or missing information. And there were 19 compounding records that I found to be missing different elements.
You have a summary in the table of what you found there, is that
That's right.
correct?
Right. Whether it's a no lot number, no expiration date, no date prepared, no assigned beyond use date.
And there are 19 occurrences of that.
That's correct.
And what's the ramification? What's what raised red flags for you about that?
We don't know when the product was made. How can you assign an appropriate beyond use date? If we don't know when the chemical expires, again, how can you assign an appropriate beyond use date to a product? And that's also verifying that everything is there before it goes out to the patient.
All right, exhibit 15. Can you identify for the board what exhibit 15 is?
Exhibit 15 would just be what the labeling would look like for patients that receive these compounded preparations.
And so what would you look for to be on these labels?
an indication that it was a compounded preparation as well as a beyond use date, which again, those can be included as auxiliary labels, or that could also be written on, but the labels that we observed as prepared products did not have either, did not include that it was compounded preparation, and it did not have a beyond use date assigned to it.
All right, Exhibit 16. Can you identify for the board members what Exhibit 16 is?
So Exhibit 16, if you recall from earlier, we talked about methyl testosterone being used that expired in July of 2022. So from looking at the dispensing report, I identified at least 13 other occurrences where methyl testosterone was dispensed from 2024 to 2025. So 13 different occurrences where the methyl testosterone was used after its expiration date.
All right, and Exhibit 17. Identify, please, for the board members what Exhibit 17 is.
So looking at the complaint, this was actually the patient's profile that includes their prescriptions and labeling. It includes prescriptions, what the prescriptions look like, as well as the labeling for the patient.
You found other concerns about that profile, did you not?
So looking at this, it appears that we would also be missing compounding records for diazepam and baclofen because it appears these were compounded. The baclofen was compounded multiple times and there were no compounding records to go along with that. If you look at that dispensing report there, that actually says baclofen 5 milligram, like it's a tablet, take 3 meals or 15 milligrams every morning and 2 meals, 10 milligrams daily with lunch, and 3 meals or 15 milligrams total nightly. So that was prepared as a liquid using tablets. Then from looking at the prescriptions we have here, once we get past the dispensing record, the baclofen, first of all, the baclofen is available commercially, but the Valium or diazepam liquid is available as a commercial preparation as well. It may not be in that exact concentration, but you can very easily achieve, I believe it's a 1 milligram per mil solution. So it's pretty easy to achieve what's needed there.
Okay, let's move on to 18, Exhibit 18. The board members, what Exhibit 18 consists of?
So Exhibit 18 is showing where expired medications were dispensed to patients. And I was able to identify 32 different occurrences where expired medications were dispensed to patients. 24 of those were for a meperidine solution. 7 of those were for an oxycodone solution. And 1 of those was for an Adderall XR. And if I correctly recall, the oxycodone solutions and meperidine solution, both of those were dispensed primarily for children.
All right, and Exhibit 19.
Exhibit 19 would be Dr. Reagan's controlled substance inventory that he completed at the close of business on September 18th of 2024. Just pointing out here, DEA says that the Schedule II controlled substances have to be separate from all other controlled substance records of the pharmacy. They're all intermingled here. And also the methyl testosterone was not included in the controlled substance inventory here. Even if the medication is expired, even if it's a chemical, if it is in your four walls of the pharmacy, that is still yours. Got to be included in the controlled substance inventory.
All right, Exhibit 20, can you identify for the board what Exhibit 20 is?
So Exhibit 20 it's PDMP report, and I apologize, these are the binders that are run here. The purple binder there actually has the full PDMP report as well as the dispensing records of the pharmacy. That's about another 700 or 800 pages there, rather than putting that in each of your, it's there. But what I did is I took a look at these compounded preparations to see if they were reported to the PDMP. And in checking that, I found that 73 of those were not reported in the PDMP record. So these products were not in there. Just to be clear, the orange tab is what divides the PDMP report from the dispensing records of the pharmacy.
All right, and let's move on. The last exhibit, 21. Can you identify for the board what Exhibit 21 is?
Exhibit 21 is what I titled dispensing without a valid prescription. And the reason I came to that is in reviewing the dispensing records of the pharmacy, as I'm going through looking at all the dispensing records for the pharmacy, I see that Westside Pharmacy is listed as the prescriber on all these prescriptions. So that's how I arrived at that.
All right, and we did an emergency hearing on this matter as well, correct?
We did.
All right. Let's go back to your interaction with Mr. Reagan. So when you were there on July 12th, did you have?
July 22nd.
Sorry, July 22nd. Did you have conversation with him about what your initial investigation was showing to you?
So I did let him know that I wanted to take the records for further review. Generally, as part of my, not generally, what I always do as part of my closeout in an inspection is go over my findings for that day. And that was something I was trying to talk with Dr. Reagan and didn't seem to be interested in hearing it at that time.
What led you to that impression?
Very standoffish at that time.
Okay. So did you attempt to sort of go over what you found with him?
I attempted to, didn't really get into it. He ended up signing the inspection, and at that time I left.
Okay. And any interactions of note when you went back on the 12th of August?
Dr. Reagan was very pleasant. He thought his compounding records were going to look better. But no issues to note as of on the 12th of August.
And so based on your investigation, what's your take on this situation? Is this a matter of just bad record keeping, or what else is going on here that you're concerned about?
It's really hard to say. It appears to be very bad records, but the records are so bad, I can't even really say.
Are you concerned that patients of Westside Pharmacy received compounded products that were basically prepared wrong?
From the compounding records, yes.
And so is that part of the reason why we were concerned and brought this to an emergency hearing due to the risk to the safety of the patients?
That's correct.
Do you have anything you want to add with regard to your investigation that we have not gone over?
I don't believe so.
All right, pass the witness.
Thank you, Ms. Mills. Mr. O'Quinn?
I don't have any questions.
Might we take a 5-minute break?
Sure. We'll go ahead and go off the record. We will reconvene at 10 past 10.
Say 5 minutes or 15? 10.
Neither.
Salty water, none of the above.
Does it change?
This is.
Board members, any questions for this witness?
I do. I have a couple more related to the math.
Yes, sir.
So I noted that it appeared the sample size in terms of assessing the completed compounding records was 910.
So there were 910 compounded preparations made from looking at the dispensing report,
Mhm.
but I only had 201 compounding records for that
Correct.
time frame.
Correct. Because 730 roughly, both controlled and non-controlled, did not have any records.
Yes, sir.
So the 201 are really all you could assess, correct?
Sir, that's correct.
And of that, you found 109 of those had some type of error or discrepancy. And then you go through and describe 10 with the wrong ingredient, 22 expired, 10 exceeded BUDs, 19 incompleted compounding records, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Is the sample size on all that 201?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I was, in terms of percentages of records that,
Percentage of records that I had available to review. Yes, sir.
and I'm not going to add all these up, but the 109, would that capture all those ones that you noted, all the different types of issues?
It's the way I would note that is if the compounding record had at least one discrepancy or error in it,
Oh.
it counted once. I didn't count it. If there were 3 or 4 problems with it,
Yep.
it counted one time. It didn't count 3 or 4 times.
Makes sense. Thank you. Also, just to make sure, estradiol and testosterone, do you have to have negative pressure to compound those since they're hazardous, or is that not required?
He does have a separate room for that, and he does have a powder containment hood. Whether it's fully operational, can't say.
Okay, because I thought USP 795 to compound estradiol, testosterone, you had to have some type of engineering controls in place, but I could be wrong on that. I'm curious. That's okay.
Okay.
A little off the wall question.
Okay, that's okay.
Okay.
Any other board members? All right, based upon that, are those questions from the board, any follow-up from council, Ms. Vales?
I have a few follow-ups for Dr. Holland, if I could.
Well,
I can recall him as rebuttal, whatever.
I don't mind if she wants to do it. Yeah.
okay, that's fine.
More efficient. Yeah.
All right. Mr.
If
Quinn,
it's more efficient, that's fine.
sure, Mr. Quinn, any questions based on the board's questions? This
Don't have
witness?
any.
Go ahead, Ms. Fields.
Okay, so let's go back a little bit. You characterized this whole scenario as hard to say what was going on. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit on that and what your specific concerns were?
So when I say hard to say, it's the thing, I believe the question was, how could this impact a patient? This is very complex. How it's going to affect you versus how it's going to affect me is incredibly different. That dose maybe could have been working great for that person, but the physician thinks they're prescribing this and the patient's getting that. It's a very different outcome. So when it's prepared differently the next time and it's not working correctly, there's a potential for a dose change there. So it varies from person to person, and we don't know how it's going to impact a person necessarily.
All right, that's all I had.
Mr. Quinn?
Nothing further.
All right, board members. All right, sir, thank you very much for your testimony. Ms. Vales, do you rest?
I reserve rebuttal if possible.
Ma'am. Mr. Quinn, your witness.
I'll call Dr. Jonathan Reagan. Dr. Reagan, you've already been sworn. Would you state your name and address for the record, please?
Jonathan Reagan, 6700. Can y'all hear me okay? Okay, got it. It's Jonathan Reagan, 6700 Willow Ridge Lane, Rogers, Arkansas.
And can you tell the board, you went to the UAMS College of Pharmacy, is that correct?
That's correct.
and you were licensed in 1991,
That's correct.
and you've got approximately 23 years of practice.
Yes.
Can you just briefly run through your employment history, the different types of places that you've worked?
So I've worked primarily retail. I started with Harps and Price Cutters in 91. And then in 93, I worked for Walmart for a couple years. Then I went to Washington Regional and worked 2 years. And then after that, I worked for Super D, I think for 2 years, and then Fred's Pharmacy. And then I've worked for Bill Graves City Pharmacy. Off and on, I would help do relief work for him. And then in 2005, we opened a store in Springdale. We've had that store open since.
That's West Side Pharmacy?
West Side Pharmacy.
Okay. And so that's a retail store that, how long have you been doing compounding?
25 years.
And recently you just had a computer change in the midst of all
Right.
these allegations, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And how old was your computer before you got the computer updated?
That software was pretty old. I know it was probably 20 years old.
So I want to go through the allegations and start with A4 and let you give your side of this to the board members. So A4 says that of the 910 controlled compounded non-sterile products, 479 contain controlled substance. Of the 479, only 134 compounding records existed. Therefore, 345 controlled substance records were dispensed without a supporting compounding record. And first, in your mind, do you distinguish between a dispensing record or having a prescription and then not having a compounding record of the prescription?
Well, I always had a prescription.
Okay.
And then,
That's what I want to step. You had a
Right.
prescription for all of these?
yes,
Okay. But you didn't have a corresponding compounding record of how you compounded it?
not an official record. I had scratch paper.
Well, tell the board what was your sometime system or what was your system for compounding?
So when I would compound, I would go off the prescription and then I would get my scratch paper and I would do my calculations. And then I would take the label and that's my calculations to the hood. Make it, and then I would always do the compounding record last. It would get, I would forget, would get busy. And I would get called to fill prescriptions and I would, I would forget to do it. Or not do it correctly.
And what type of staffing do you have at West Side?
So I have a clerk running the register, and then I have 2 pharmacy technicians that usually one's helping me, the other one's helping us or out front.
But it's a one pharmacist pharmacy?
It's just me,
Okay.
except on Mondays, Leanne Bryant, she'll come in sometimes half a day or a full day just to help.
When you first got the emergency order of suspension in this case, you haven't compounded since then, correct?
Oh, what now?
When you first got the emergency order of suspension in this case, you haven't compounded
Oh, I've
since then?
stopped.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then some of these matters were brought to your attention and you went back to try to figure out how they happened. Is that a fair
That's
statement?
correct.
Okay, so we'll go through that. But tell the board what you did immediately when you got that emergency order of suspension that said you had all these issues going on. Tell the board what you tried to go back and find out how the issue happened and what you did to correct it.
So a lot of times I would write it out and then I would make copies and then I would go back if it was the same patient and prescription. And if something had changed, I would white it out and write in the correct information. But apparently I didn't fill it out correctly 100%.
The allegation number 5, it talks about of the 910 CNSPs prepared during the timeframe 4/31 did not contain a controlled substance. And it's kind of like the previous allegation that left 385 non-controlled substance compounded products without a supporting compounding record. Is your answer for that one the same as you said for the A4?
Right. I was not a good record taker. It was, I got laxed on it. I've been doing this for so long. And there was a point in time when we didn't have to do any of that. And I just never caught on to it like I should have, like I was supposed to.
Then you present the board with the Exhibit 1, which is a statement from Madison Nichols Pharmacy Tech and Caitlin Davis Pharmacy Tech. And they're basically verifying that that is the way you would.
Right. I would, fill the script, get the label. I had a notebook with my calculations of that particular patient on scratch paper. And then I would take that to the hood, get my ingredients, and then make it. And then I would attempt to, at that time, fill out the compounding record, but typically we were so busy, it was just me, people calling, I would forget to do it.
Now, Exhibit A6, not exhibit, but allegation A6 says, in reviewing the 910 compounding records, of the 201 that there were records for, 109 of those had errors in them.
Although those records show errors, I'm confident I made those correctly. The last thing I want to do is harm anybody.
Would you knowingly use an expired product, for instance?
No. I probably misread it, wrote it down, made copies, and then I looked back at old records to get the expiration date, but I would not ever knowingly falsify an expiration date.
Well, A7 just talks about the ingredients. It says that in 7 of 10 occurrences, you used the wrong hormone.
I'm confident that did not happen.
Why are you confident that
I've been doing this for 30 years. I know that if I was weighing out, I know that you can't use that much estradiol in a I would have caught myself doing that. I'm confident that that did not happen.
of the ingredients and I think it's table A8. It says you're using expired ingredients 22 times in the preparation of 14 different compounded non-sterile products. You got an Exhibit 2 and an Exhibit 3. It looks like those are invoices. And what's the purpose of Exhibit 2 and Exhibit 3?
There were 2 things that were expired that I was not aware of.
What were they?
The ketotifen, the methyltestosterone,
The first 2
Right.
on this list, table 8?
and then the cyclobenzaprine. I was not aware those were expired. But all this other stuff, was not expired. I've got invoices, recent invoices from past year where I had ordered those items. So I kept all my expired drugs in the room because I was told that it needed to stay in there because some of them were hazardous chemicals. So I left them in there so that when my expired drugs company would come, I would give them those drugs, but I left them in there because that's what I thought we were supposed to do, not leave them out, take them out in the pharmacy because some of them were hazardous.
Okay. So exhibit 2, you're saying is invoices showing that table 8 is incorrect, except for the 3 drugs you meant.
That's correct.
Okay. And then exhibit 3 is a statement from your technicians, Mason Nicholas, I guess, and
So
Caitlin.
we had a process for expired drugs. About every 3 months, the girls would go through everything. And then we would put, if it was gonna expire soon, we would put a sticker on it with that date so that we would catch it. And there were some things missed. And I ultimately, that falls on me, but I was trusting that they had gone through everything and caught everything. But we missed them things.
But you did have a system in place.
Yes, we had a system in place.
And then allegation A9 says that you falsified the expiration date for individual ingredients, extending the expiration date beyond the actual expiration date with no documentation of chemical retesting on 13 occurrences. Allegation
I
A9.
didn't falsify. I just wrote it down wrong. I didn't ever knowingly falsify.
Says exhibit, allegation A10. A10 says on 16 occurrences, you prepared a CNSP without a required ingredients for 15 of those compounded products, and therefore dispensed a misbranded or adulterated drug. What do you want to tell the board about that?
Well, like I said earlier, the compounded record was my very last thought. I didn't compound off the compounding record. I would compound off the label, and then I would have my calculations on the scratch sheet of paper. And I'm confident if the wrong lot number was listed for something else, that was an error. But I'm confident I made everything correctly with the correct ingredients.
Allegation A11 says on 42 occurrences, you had an incorrect amount of an ingredient resulting in an incorrect final concentration or a discrepancy in the amount made. So what is your side of that?
So I wrote it down wrong, but I would do my calculations on a sheet of paper or, Fagron would have recipe sheets that, we could print off, or I would use that. So the ketotifen, I have a sheet from Letco that shows how to make it. Yeah, and on the conversion on ketotifen, it's 1 milligram, I think equals like 1.03 milligrams. I'm not sure where this 82 comes from. On the liothyronine, I was using the tablets to make that. So on the liothyronine, I would use the 25 microgram tablets. So that 97 milligrams is what one of those tablets would weigh. On the levothyroxine, I would use the generic Synthroid. I've got it on here, Accord. So I would calculate. So on that preparation, I needed 30 of the 25 microgram tablets. I would put those in my mortar and pestle, and then I would figure out the Synthroid part, 90 times 30 divided by the weight of the tablet. That would give me X amount of tablets. I would put that in the mortar and pestle. I would grind it up, and then I would take the weight of the capsule, the weight of each tablet to figure out my final weight. So I didn't use T4, T3 powder. I would use the tablets to make that. So although this looks like I weighed out 97 milligrams of the powder, it was actually a tablet. So Zydus, Zydus is a tablet manufacturer and Accord is a tablet manufacturer. I was using tablets, not powder from the compounding company. I would crush them up, mix it up, put some blue food coloring in it, mix it up, make sure it was consistent. And then I would weigh out, put it on my tray in the hood, and I would weigh out each capsule to make sure they were correct. So some of this, it's just poor record keeping on my part, but I wasn't making the compound based off this. This was after I had done everything. I would go back and attempt to write it out. I was very busy. I should have done this when either before work or when I had another pharmacist there so that I didn't get distracted from filling out the compounding log. And I realized that, like I said, for so many years, I've been compounding without having to do this. I do realize now how important it is and how important this is in the process of compounding.
So let's go, there's some issue here with the beyond use dates and the number of the allegations.
So I would most everything I made was for 30 days. So I would just put 30 days. And then I would write it on the label that went on the bottle, beyond BUD 30 days. So I didn't, so when I got the new system, it makes it much easier and it can pull that information onto the record. And I think at the end of, I think I've got that. It made it so much easier to plug everything in and just print it off rather than writing down everything.
You're talking about your new software
New
program?
software.
Allegation A18 is talking about you were compounding commercially available products, I believe,
So,
baclofen and those things.
so when on that diazepam suspension, the Arkansas Children's Hospital, the doctor called me, said, the patient can't find this stuff. Can you make it? And I said, sure. So I was just trying to help this little girl. And I didn't make a screenshot showing that it wasn't available, but I do have paperwork that says there was a shortage this past summer of diazepam solution.
That's exhibit 4 of your exhibits?
Wow. As far as the baclofen goes, I didn't even know there was a baclofen product on the market. The pharmacy that I had transferred these scripts from said, this is how we're making it. We're making it with tablets. So I just assumed that there was not a baclofen product on the market until after the inspection.
Okay, there was some issue about whether you reported the controlled substances to the PDMP.
And
And that's your exhibit.
I'm very confused about that because I had my technician Mason check all of them. And she said, I see that everything is reported. And I've got a statement from her saying that.
That's your exhibit 5.
I was confused about that because I was showing everything was reported. And I had her check it. I said, I want you to check this. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. And she said, no, everything is reported. And I had her fill out a statement saying that.
And you called the PDMP to verify?
Right. And right, I'm very confused about that. I wasn't aware of that if there was a problem.
I think you've addressed a lot of these. That you billed Adderall
So-
XR 15 to the Medicaid program.
Right, that didn't
20.
happen. We just spent the generic. I put it in the computer wrong. There was only 4, I was looking at the inventory. There was only like 4 capsules in that bottle. But Mason said, I filled the generic because I was looking at the script. I just put it in the computer wrong. But when they showed that to me, I fixed it right then.
That's
I
your,
reversed the claim.
that's your exhibit 6
Right.
of the
But we
Adderall.
didn't use the brand. We used the generic.
There's some issue that was brought up that your inventory, controlled substance inventory didn't separate out the C2s from the other controlled substances. And that's your exhibit 7, I believe.
So
So tell us about that.
the old system just printed it out. And I thought at the last inspection last summer, I thought Brandon pointed it out to me and I said, Brandon, do I need to cut all those out? He said, no, next time, make sure that that's separate. The C2s are separate from everything else. And I said, I will make sure that's separated. And I don't know how the new system does it. But I will make sure that the C2s are, by themselves.
And then I think you've addressed this one. Allegation 25 was talking about the PDMP and products not going into the PDMP system.
Well, I'm showing that they were reported and I had Mason check them and she said they're reported. And I said, well, write out a statement saying that, please. So she did.
And that's your exhibit 8, I believe.
Yes, that's it. I had her do that because I was trying to, work and fill prescriptions.
And then allegation 26 said that you were dispensing without a prescription authorized by law. And your exhibit 9 shows that you did have a prescription.
I had a prescription. I don't know how that happened. I don't know if when they pulled all the data from the old software, if it somehow put Westside Pharmacy, they were all for a dog, for Apoquel, which is a allergy medicine. So, and I had taken them over the phone, but I also called the vet and I said, can you send me a handwritten prescription, which he did. The naproxen, that was a call-in from Dr. Soma, and I think he's in Missouri. I don't know why Westside Pharmacy was listed as the doctor. I'm clueless about that.
But you did have valid prescriptions.
Yes, of
Okay.
course. I would not fill a prescription without a prescription.
Now exhibit, exhibit 10 is 2 character letters that you've submitted them from people on your behalf.
Right.
Okay.
And I had another nurse practitioner send me one to my phone and I can read it. She has a animal sanctuary And I do a lot of prescriptions for that, and I can read it if you want me to.
Well, let's go to you, Exhibit 11. You proactively taken some continuing pharmacy education on
Right.
related to compounding?
I'm very sorry for, this. And I'm gonna make sure it doesn't happen again.
What are you asking the board to do today?
To give me another chance. I have, as you would say, learned my lesson. This has been a rough, very rough, ordeal.
All right, I'll pass the witness.
Thank you, Mr. McLean. Ms. Rios?
Yeah, a couple of questions. So you've been compounding for, you said 25 years?
Well, I
Have you
probably
been-
25.
Probably, okay. And so you've been inspected by inspectors from the board before, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so let me just refer you to Exhibit 2, which is all the inspections. And the first one is from 2018. And the inspector on that, if you turn to the first inspection on the back page, signed by Dr. Cindy Fain. Do you see that?
Yes, by Cindy.
Yes.
Okay.
And you know who that is, right?
Who?
You know who Cindy Fain is?
Yes.
And she's been in your pharmacy before.
Right,
You recall that?
yes.
And if you'll read on the remarks, it says need to document compounding. You
Right.
see that in number 3?
I agree.
And then it says, at the very bottom, it says fax sample compounding form, and it has a phone number.
Right,
And so the compounding form, did she send that to you?
right.
And these are the compounding forms that are in these exhibits, correct? Exhibit 6 has the compounding forms filled out. Is that the example that Dr. Fain gave you?
Yes.
Okay. And did you talk to Dr. Fain about your method of using scratch paper? Did she know about that?
I don't remember.
You don't remember? Did you ever talk to an investigator and say, hey, I have this whole thing where I do scratch
you-
paper?
Aaron, did you not see my?
You can't ask him a question.
Okay.
Just your recollection. Do you recall talking to an investigator from this board about your method of using a scratch piece of paper to compound?
I don't recall.
You don't recall. Okay. And so are you disputing that the records that we have that Brandon presented, there are errors in them, correct?
Yes.
You're just saying you don't think that they're correct? You don't know? You don't recall?
My record keeping was very poor, but I'm confident that I made everything correct.
You realize the record keeping is part of your duty as a pharmacist, correct?
Right,
To comply with the law.
yes.
So if you haven't done proper record keeping, then you haven't complied with the law. That, you agree with that statement?
I agree.
Okay. So, and you said over and over again, you're confident you made these products correctly. How are you confident?
Because I was very focused on getting the right products and doing my calculations correctly.
But I mean, how do you know that if there's no
I have
record?
confidence in myself.
Well, I mean, I have confidence that I shut my garage door this morning, but there are times I come home and the garage door's been open every day. So
Right.
would you agree with me that that's a possibility here, that you have made some of these incorrectly? You don't have records to show that otherwise,
I'm confident that I made everything correctly.
but you don't have the records to prove that to me.
They're at the store.
There are records at the
I
store.
scratched my scratch paper and a bonder.
You ever shown that to any investigator? Did you show that to Dr.
I
Holland?
did. They were in there with everything.
Okay. So when he came back on August 12th, did you say, hey, wait, you don't have all these scratch pieces of paper? Did you tell,
No.
ask Brandon if he had that?
I know, I'm confident that they saw that. They went through everything.
So you're confident Dr. Holland knew about your scratch paper?
It was, I would put it on paper and then make copies. So there might be 4 on each sheet, and then I would put it in a binder. And you can call the store right now, they can send you pictures.
Well, I mean, we're here today, so anybody that needs to provide testimony should be here today.
I wasn't told to provide that.
You'll have to talk to your attorney
Okay.
about that. I don't know. I'm asking you, when you came back, when Dr. Holland came back on August 12th,
Right,
he specifically asked you, are these all the records? And you told him yes.
these records. Right here.
Okay,
But I did have my calculations in a binder.
okay. And so, you said that the compounding record was your very last thought when you were compounding. So when did you make these compounding records after the product was made? Was it
Well,
days or weeks after the fact?
No, I would try to do it that day or that afternoon and we would just get busy and I would forget.
So when you did this, I mean, you said you sometimes you just wrote it down wrong.
Yes.
And why would you not pay close enough attention to what you wrote down as that's the official record?
I was so busy a lot of those days that I did my best to fill it out.
Okay, so you were so busy that you made some errors on these records,
I made errors.
but you never made errors when you were compounding products.
I don't know.
Okay.
I feel confident that I didn't, but I'm not going to say never. I mean,
Okay. How much training have you had on compounding?
how much what?
Training, CE hours have you done on compounding?
I had worked with Bill Graves off and on for many years and I learned a lot from him. I've been to a school in Memphis on compounding. I don't remember, it's American Academy of Compounding in Memphis.
So I have, and you've submitted some records, I can't read that, put it sideways, but you submitted some records on CE that you did in September and October of this month.
So after the inspection, Brandon said, you need to probably do some continuing education on compounding. So I have started that process. I've got, so far 7.5 hours. I'm doing it's a certificate program. with
Well,
one-
let me ask you this though, before this inspection and before you knew there was issues, I mean, I've pulled your CE record for the last couple of years and I show 3 hours of CE on compounding issues in 2019 and 2020. 2019, it looks like you did 1 hour. 2020 looks like you did 2 hours. Does that sound accurate to you?
I probably had a whole year of it in school
Do you have a record of that?
at UAMS.
Do you have a document with you that shows you went to school on compounding? Since
I don't have it
since
with,
your
I don't have it
graduation?
with me.
Yeah, okay. All right, and so you said your pharmacy technician Madison checked,
Mason,
Mason, sorry, checked.
the PMP.
Yeah, so how did she do that?
You took that list that was provided from me,
Mm-hmm,
went over to the computer and started putting in those names and birth dates.
okay. And you were off doing something else at the time? You
Well,
were working at the time. She was assigned to do that.
I didn't have time. I needed help with some of the stuff. So
Yeah.
I felt that would be something she could do.
And do you remember the emergency, or the order from the emergency hearing told you to recall the product?
I called everybody.
You called
The
everybody
people- The
that,
people that the drugs had expired. And I told them what had happened. And I said, don't use it anymore and we're gonna have to find you a new pharmacy. And the lady, the ketotifen, everybody said, well, it's working fine. So I said, well, this is what happened and I'm sorry. And
how many phone calls did you make?
quite a few.
You remember how many? I mean, so you should have
It
called.
was the expired, it was the ketotifen, methyl testosterone, and the cyclobenzaprine. I called her, it was that ketamine cream. And then I called the mom on the, I called as many of the meperidine people as I could. But I did do that.
Okay. So let, 17. Let's turn, if you would, to exhibit 17. This is the methyl testosterone expired. Oh, sorry, 17, patient profile. If you go to the end of the patient profile, the very next page on the back is a prescription for, well, you tell me what that is when you find it.
What prescription is it?
It's, you go to the end of the patient profile and the next page shows a prescription.
On the diazepam?
Keep going.
This? The oxy?
Mm-mm. It's not numbered, or I would give you a number. I'm not trying to trick you.
Right.
Okay, you see, tell me what that is.
So that's when the doctor called
Tell me
it.
what this document is.
What?
Tell me what this document I'm looking at is.
That's a prescription,
Okay, and what's it for?
Valium.
Okay. And, tell me how you compound, this is something you compounded, correct?
Right,
How did you do it?
with tablets.
Okay.
And or plus.
Okay, go through the process of how you did that.
So I would get the tablets that were required, put them in the mortar and pestle, crush them up, mix in or plus till it was consistent, and then put it in a bottle.
And what's the quantity?
So it says there I used 8.4 tablets of 10 milligram tablets and 140 mLs of or plus.
Okay, so back up in the patient profile to page 3. It's numbered at the top. You see that there? Patient 3 or page 3?
Right.
Okay, and do you find that prescription is smack in the middle of that page for diazepam? See that?
Yeah.
What's the quantity there?
5 milligrams per 5 mils.
Okay, if you go down to so there's categories at the top, days, quantity used, quantity available, correct? Go down on that prescription and tell me in that category, in that column that says quantity, what is that number?
On that, right
The
there,
diazepam, yeah.
are you looking at 527? What day are we looking at?
Page 3,
Is there a date? Okay.
yeah. See it in the middle? The diazepam, and tell me what the quantity is that's listed under the quantity column.
Okay, what's the question?
You see the diazepam?
Right,
Okay.
so.
But
when-
what is the listing under the column at the top for that prescription?
Right,
What's the quantity? Does it say 42?
yes.
Okay. Is that your recollection of what you made when you made this prescription?
On that particular one, yes.
Okay. All right. And let's talk about, if I have a few other questions for you. So would you agree with me that a lot of these errors that Brandon identified happened before your software change? All right, yeah, and so with regard to the PDMP, do you have a delegate for your PDMP?
A delegate?
Uh-huh,
Yes, that's me.
that's you?
Yes.
So you haven't delegated that responsibility to anybody else? You're taking responsibility for the PDMP?
Well, I use it and then Leanne, she uses it. She logs in. But ultimately, it's my responsibility.
All right, fair enough. No other questions for this witness?
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Mills. Mr. O'Quinn, any redirect?
I don't have any.
Board members, any questions?
I have a question. So I noticed that on each of your board inspections, there was kind of a trend. It started on that September 27th, 2018. Dr. Fain came in and she said, you're not documenting your compound formulations. You're not keeping records as you should be. And I want you to change this. She sent you a suggested form. And then she came, I see that in July of 2019 on inspection, she said that you had corrected all of the previous deficiencies.
Yes, sir.
Okay, which was good. But then the next inspection in January of 22, there's a request for you need records for your compounds. So it's like you fixed it and you quit. I mean, I
was doing too much.
I understand. Then March 8th of 23, the next, after you'd been told in January of 22 that you need to have records for your compounds. March 8th of 23, the note from the inspector is that there were significant improvements in the compounding records. Okay, it looks like it's trended back the right direction. And then the next year, July 30th of 24, there's not any specific note about the documenting of your formulations and what you're doing each time that you make the product, but it says to remove your expired drugs from the active drugs. And I don't believe that happened per your personal conversation with concerns about how to handle the hazardous drugs. Okay, all right. Then now this year, it looks like all of those problems came back. And I don't understand that.
Because my compounding business exploded and I was doing, in retrospect, doing too much for one person. I should have either turned away some of those, or I should have trained somebody that would be their sole responsibility. I was trying to do it all and I was doing too much.
Okay. Are you done with that? I didn't interrupt you, right?
Sorry.
I didn't interrupt you, did I?
No, you're-
Okay.
you're-
All right. So now I want to turn to this compound formula sheet that Dr. Fain sent you. This, I just haven't.
That's the one.
Okay. So whenever you used this, what do you consider the purpose of that compound formula sheet to be?
I know that now it's probably the most important process in that. And I understand that it's important to have that, and I failed that.
But tell me what you consider the purpose of that formula sheet to
The
be.
purpose of the formulation is to show how I correctly made the product, the compound, and have my notes on that, showing how I mixed it and so forth. And to have any references on that particular compound and the beyond use dates.
Okay. And were you creating lot numbers and expiration dates whenever you did do these or on your pieces of paper? Or did you make lot
On
numbers?
scratch paper, no.
Okay, well, what else did you have besides your scratch paper that you did keep?
On scratch paper, it was just like my little recipe card. All right, Jonathan, you're gonna weigh out this much of this much of this, then you're gonna put it in this, and I usually didn't have to reference those because I just know what I was doing. But if I had to, I could go back to that and go, okay, so I need to, make sure I measure out that amount on my scratch paper.
So you understand what you're saying, right? You're telling me that you just remembered the formulation? And
Well, usually I could look at the label and go, okay, well, I'm gonna need 30 milligrams of this, 30 milligrams of this, and I'm gonna need 25 grams of Pentravan plus. And I'm gonna go in there, I'm gonna wet my powders with ethoxy diglycol, make a paste, and then mix in my Pentravan, make sure it's all mixed together well, and then I would, put it in a container.
so I went to UAMS also, and there was something that they said to us over and over and over again, and I'm older than you, so the people may have changed, but I would assume this particular statement I'm going to make didn't change. If you didn't document it, you didn't do it.
Right.
I think
My
regardless of
record
the
keeping was
age.
sloppy.
Okay.
Any other board members? Dr. Davenport?
I just have one question. So you mentioned a couple of things. You mentioned that your compounding business exploded and you were doing too much. But then you've said many times that you're confident that you did everything correctly.
I am confident. I don't want to give somebody the wrong product, and I'm very focused when I have that label, what I need to get and what I need to weigh. The record part was always like the last thing in my mind when I was doing this. I'll fill that out later. But I don't want to give someone the wrong product, or I don't want to
And
hurt
I
them.
understand that you don't have a desire to give someone the wrong product. I'm just saying that if you were overwhelmed
Right.
with the work and you don't have documentation, even to slow you down, which is part of it's the double checking process, right? How can you state that you're confident that you did something correctly when you're showing us that you did not document correctly? Like, where do you see the disconnect there? I don't.
Yeah, I never had anybody call and go, hey, this something's not right. I don't feel well. I never had any feedback that I had made anything correctly.
Any other questions from the board?
I do have one more question. I noticed that in your rebuttal documents that you're supporting information that you had purchased the products that were out of date except for
There were
the, okay,
Yes, sir.
except for the cyclobenzaprine and
Ketoprofen and methyltestosterone were expired.
okay. And one of the products that was listed on here is out of date, I believe, was Estriol. Is that correct? And the supporting invoice that you submitted was actually for estradiol, not Estriol.
What's
And
what now?
So one of
What I
the,
submitted was invoices.
right, and that invoice that you submitted that would have because there was no reference to estradiol being used expired. There was only estriol that was referenced as being.
So there was
used.
no estradiol in the,
No, just
no.
estriol.
um,
So that would actually be full.
I can supply that. I thought I had it in here. On the compounding.
So there's just an extra one. Thank
There's
you.
none.
Okay, good deal. Thank you. Dr. Boone showed me that.
All right. Any other questions from the board? Not based on the line of questions from the board, do you have any follow-ups for your client, Mr. McQuinn?
I don't.
Ms. Vales?
Oh. Mr.
Well, let me
Dodd.
ask Mr. McQuinn if he rests
I'm
for.
sorry, he's got one.
Yeah, I mean, I've got my, we're talking about the estradiol? Okay, okay.
All right, Mr. McQuinn, do you rest?
I do.
Ms. Vales? All right, please proceed.
Dr. Holland, you reviewed the exhibits that were submitted on Mr. Reagan's behalf, did you not?
I did.
What of those exhibits did you find take issue?
But for one thing, Dr. Fouché, I think, was asking the question there about the invoices for purchases of alleged expired drugs. To Dr. Fouché's point, I never said that estradiol was expired at any point in here. That is one that's asterisked. If you also take a look at Exhibit 8, if you take a look at the table that was provided for Exhibit 8 of expired ingredients, nowhere will you find lecithin organogel. I did not say that was expired at any point.
You don't take issue with the invoices. They don't refer to the concerns that you had with the expired ingredient.
I do see estriol here, but that's not what was written on the compound log. This lot number does not match the lot number on the compounding record. I see progesterone here. That was not what was written on the compounding record. So yes, there were products, but those were not the products written in the compounding record.
All right, any other exhibits that were submitted that you want to highlight for the board?
I think the only other thing would be the Adderall billing. So that's labeled Exhibit 6.A22. On that one, it shows that dextroamphetamine, so mixed amphetamine salts was dispensed. But the big book that we had that actually contained the PDMP record and the dispensing records, that one book that we had, that one actually showed, and I actually have that tabbed. Dr. Quinn, if you got the, and he should, I think he should have one too. Yes, the pink, the ones that are tabbed with pink right there, you'll see in the first pink tab will be the PDMP report. So if you look where that pink tab is, you'll see where it says Adderall XR 15 milligrams. That is in the PDMP report. And then if you go to the other, again, the orange tab is just separating there where the PDMP report and dispensing report. So if you go to the next pink tab, which is towards the back of that there, you'll also see in the dispensing records of the pharmacy, which was obtained from the previous software company before the software conversion, shows that Adderall XR 15 milligram was what was dispensed to the patient.
Any other exhibits that you had concerns with?
Just think the PDMP reporting, I'm just trying to understand, I guess Mason. I guess I'm trying to understand if Mason physically went into the PDMP under Dr. Reagan, checked each individual patient to confirm that it was reported to the PDMP. I have issue with understanding that.
And, after the emergency hearing, Dr. Reagan was told to recall products. What did you expect to see from that recall? What would that recall supposed to look like?
I would expect if I recorded an incorrect ingredient, which I actually provided that to Dr. Reagan and Dr. O'Quinn, provided a list of the products that I thought contained either an expired ingredient or an incorrect ingredient. I think that's something that I recall. There's no question. If the record says it's wrong, to me, it's wrong. I'm not gonna assume that I did it correctly.
Okay, anything else you want to add with regard to the exhibits from Dr. Reagan?
I don't believe so.
All right, thank you. Pass the witness.
Thank you, Ms. Mills. Mr. Quinn, any
Yes.
questions?
Just, I recall, Dr. Reagan one time just to address the Adderall issue.
Oh, hold on a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Let me ask the board if they have any questions. Based upon that line of testimony, any questions from the board? All right, Mr. Quinn?
Call Dr. Reagan back just to address what, Dr. Holland has
On the
said.
Adderall, we dispensed the generic. Mason remembers that. She said there wasn't enough, there was only like 4 capsules in that brand name Adderall. So she got the generic thinking that I was gonna change it. I didn't change it, but she dispensed the generic. There was only like 4 of the Adderall capsules in that bottle that had expired. I'd have to look at my inventory that I did, but it was 4. So she said that I didn't fill the brand, I filled the generic. So when they brought it to my attention, I fixed it. I reversed it from Medicaid.
Thank you.
Ms. Mills?
Nothing else. Nothing else, sorry.
Board members, any questions? All right, if not, how about closing statements?
Briefly, and I think Dr. Fouché has a right. I mean, if you don't document it, it didn't happen. But here we have some of the things that are documented are pretty scary. We have people getting the wrong hormone. That's documented that people got the wrong hormone. People got products that had BUD dates that were changed. That's what's in the records. I don't know how you're confident that if you're so overwhelmed that your compounding business blew up, how you're confident that you got everything right except for these records. I don't trust that this is an accurate portrayal of what he did. If Brandon can't figure it out, no one can. And the patients have to be able to trust that what they're getting is the product that their prescriber wants them to have. And I just don't see that here. His records are fraudulent, they're inaccurate, they're sloppy. All of that is leading to patients getting products dispensed to them with unknown ingredients, fraudulent expired products being used, and that causes harm to patients. That's evident. You don't have to have a pharmacy degree to realize if I get the wrong hormone, that could be a problem for me. The scratch paper and stuff, I don't know what to make of that. If it's not in these records, it didn't happen. What's in these records is wrong on every level. So I think you need to hold him accountable for this. His conduct is reckless. He is putting patients at harm. We proved that to you at the emergency hearing. There's nothing that you heard today that could dispute that. His behavior is reckless, and because his behavior is reckless, he should be disciplined for it accordingly. We're asking for you to consider revocation of his license. We're asking you for consider prohibition of him being able to compound. His negligence at best, more likely reckless conduct, is putting patients at harm, and it's your duty as board members to make sure the patients are safe. That's not happening here. So we ask you to hold him accountable accordingly.
Thank you, Ms. Mills. Mr. O'Quinn?
You've heard the testimony and you can make of it what you will. He's admitted to taking responsibility for poor record keeping and that he was overwhelmed in his one-man store. That doesn't excuse it. And he's said that this has gotten his attention, but he's accepted responsibility that he's violated the record keeping laws. He doesn't think that the compounded products he was putting out was compounded incorrectly. So I think I agree with Ms. Bales. The issue is what is the remedy or the discipline or the sanction And the board has many options less severe than pretty much the death penalty of revocation. And without shutting down a whole pharmacy over this. And it may very well be just tell them to quit compounding, because no one's really complaining about the other part of his practice. So, he now has new software and I think things should be improving, but, he's accepted responsibility for poor record keeping.
Thank you, Mr. McQuinn. At this point in time, oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Vales, do you have any rebuttal? Well, at this point in time, I will call the evidentiary part of the record to a close. Board's going to go ahead, go off the record. They will deliberate. They'll come back on the record and announce their decision with probably motions and votes. If there's nothing else, we'll go ahead, go off the record. And Madam President, I will turn it over to you.
Raise your hand, everybody.
Sorry. Okay, we're off the record and we're just going to go down the line and kind of
Okay.
give some opinions to get the conversation started.
I have a great deal of concern about the number of errors. It was greater than half of the records that were presented. I struggle to see that, couldn't see 2022 on that expiration date for the methyl testosterone. It was as clear as day. There were no blurring of any of the numbers or anything to make me believe that that's the situation. I think that was a decision to use a product to go ahead and get the prescription out the door whenever you didn't have access to an in-date product, which is never acceptable. I don't see any documentation of lot numbers being created for these products, which is really important as far as tracking for a recall, knowing what you used. And I see no, it's just a complete failure on the record end of things, and trying to remember a formulation and do it by memory is begging for a mistake. I don't think he should be compounding. It's because this was discussed from 2018 through current with waxing and waning in, whether or not he was keeping the records. And I'm not sure that the practice with the scratch paper ever ceased. And he said himself that he would make the formulations and then try to go back later and create the records. And that's not the purpose of those records and formula sheets. Those are used to catch an error. If you see that you've picked up the estradiol instead of the estriol, or I mean, we've got to protect the public. You need to have confidence that what the label says is in the product is actually in the product, that it was compounded properly, and that the patient can walk out and know that they have the right thing, and the pharmacist can know it and prove it.
I think, along with Lynn, we don't really know what's in there because we don't have all the records, and that's concerning. More concerning for me is probably the intentional change on the expiration dates on some of these products. But even if they were bought new, we just rolled the same lot number and pushed the expiration date 2 years out. I think that's an issue. Some of these other things, there are some explanations there that, I think maybe that is the case, that there was error made and it was busy, but again, you got to go back to what we actually have to go off of are these records. And so we can't assume. I'm just looking at what we've got.
I think to add to that, my biggest concern, all of that is a concern, but my biggest is that I thought you were getting testosterone and you really did get estrogen. I mean, all those kind of errors even if they were just written down wrong errors, it alarms me to think if I were getting a prescription, I want it to be what I thought it was gonna be. And I would not have any way of knowing it because it's compounded and so that's my big alarm is I feel like people did get some wrong things.
And I would like to echo what Dr. Fouché, Dr. Boone, and Dr. Mack has said. But my main thing is patient harm. People getting the wrong compounds. Possibly males getting hold of some estrogen. That's very concerning to me. And the sloppy record keeping, that doesn't make sense. I mean, you just have to write down what's written on the bottle onto your compounding sheet. And I do believe that what he saw is what he wrote down. And how can you write down the wrong number? How can you write down the wrong expiration date? How can you write down the wrong lot number when you may have 2 or 3 products you're using, you line them up and you write those numbers down. So again, I go back to what kind of patient harm that has been done that we can't go back and figure out what it is. That's to me, it's very, very scary.
Nothing significant to add above the observations of the other board members. I agree on the prohibition on compounding that Dr. Fouché mentioned. I do think that we are obligated to enforce some type of disciplinary action, some type of fine that would be associated with that. And I also believe that in subsequent inspections, which I'm not asking that we do one other than our normal cycle of schedules, but if there are significant repeat observations, because we have observations that don't have anything to do necessarily with compounding, that he needs to come back before the board.
I agree. I don't think that compounding should be an option, just period. I think pharmacy is a profession of record keeping and detail. It's not cooking. And so, we just can't set a precedence in general of taking somebody's word for it without documentation. So, I agree with everything in terms of discipline and no compounding, period.
I can't support any option in this case other than termination. The one question that I've heard raised is, could we do something like restrict a suspension or limitation just to compounding? And I think I've seen enough things that extend not only to compounding, but just basically to the practice of pharmacy. Like what Lenora said about writing the numbers down. That's not an error. To write those numbers down, you have to intend to write those numbers down. It's not an accident. It's not a transposition of something. And for that reason, I can't support anything other than outright termination here.
Okay, so we've got it on the table as some options. Possibly since Harold just vote, we'll go the same direction and kind of get it closer to what we think we want to do. Start with.
Can we look at the very first page in the white binder? Very first page in the white binder, and let's move down to the individual things that have to do with a prescription of some kind or another. The deficiencies that were noted. Okay, and I want to delineate which of these is a compound related complaint and which of these is for a non-compounded prescription. Did y'all think that's a reasonable look at this? Okay. The patient complaint first. Was the complaint for a compounded prescription or for a non-compounded prescription? It was for a compounded prescription, I believe.
Yep.
Correct?
If they didn't get enough, yes.
Yes. Okay. So I'm gonna mark that as a compounded prescription. Next to 3, okay, 4 is a compounded prescription. 5 has to do with a compounded prescription. 6 has to do with a compounded prescription. 7 is about a wrong ingredient. That has to do with a compounded prescription. 8, expired ingredient used. That has to do with a compounded prescription. 9, falsified expiration date. That has to do with a compounded prescription. 10, missing ingredient. That's a compounded prescription. 11, wrong strength or concentration or amount made. That's a compound. 12, inappropriate assignment of beyond use date. That's a compound. 13, incorrect unit of measure naming of product. That's a compound. 14, incomplete compounding records. That's a compound. 15, compounded non-sterile product prescription labeling. That's a compound. 16, expired methyl testosterone. That's a compound. 17, patient profile prescription and labeling, which was specific to compounds. That is a compound. 18, expired medications dispensed. Was there any documentation of a commercially available product dispensed that was expired? There was. Okay. So let me mark that. Okay. Controlled substance inventory, that has to do with everything. The PDMP reporting, were all of those missing records compounds? Okay. And dispensed without a valid prescription. I don't know if everyone was satisfied with the prescription. I know that the written prescription he had from the prescriber came after the fact, I believe.
It was
And-
September.
Okay, okay. So that would be, okay, so what I'm just looking at this, we have 1, 2, 3 things that have to do with the practice of pharmacy minus compounding. Okay, that's all I wanted to say on that. And I'm not saying that what your concerns couldn't be extrapolated from the compounded drugs to a commercially available. I just don't see it.
There's some ethical things, I think, that just happen to
Okay.
be on compounds that are not, I mean, I think that would be the argument. Was
Yeah,
there's
and
an
I think-
overarching ethical issue.
I think breaking this down just to compounding versus regular dispensing doesn't make any more sense than to say, well, all of this, whatever it was, only involved pills or versus capsules versus fluids. So we're only going to suspend this. All of these things that we saw with regard to compounding, the actual thing that was done wrong, whether it was record keeping or documentation or whatever, extend to all aspects of pharmacy, not just to compounding. And they're so widespread and so gross and so repeated that I just don't see how we can say that Dr. Reagan, it's appropriate for him to continue practicing pharmacy. That's my point.
Brian, you'd mentioned disciplinary action in addition to a fine. Did you have anything in mind for those whenever?
Well, the disciplinary action would be the giving out a disciplinary fine associated with this, right? Are you asking
Do you have an
about
amount?
amounts? I mean, I think it has to be at least $10,000. I think it has to be significant. You know, I don't know if we want to go through and
That's the next thing we go through these numbers, but I'm just gonna give you all those.
Yeah. I mean, we've got so many, I mean, just based on, I don't know if it's worth the exercise to do. I mean, just based on the number of compounded products that did not have a compounding record, it's 730. So I guess my point is whatever number we come up with, divided by whatever, you know, it's not, probably not going to matter, at least in my mind.
Yeah.
I just think it needs to be a disciplinary fine that,
Higher than that, honestly, if we're doing it instead of license revocation, which is,
I mean, this is significant. I mean, it's significant, and I'm just throwing out a number, not, just like a floor there, but, I mean, this is significant, and this is not the first inspection. These are known issues that go back, 7 or 8 years. So we can hash out the amount, but that was what I was thinking in terms of the disciplinary is by virtue of us handing out a disciplinary fine, it would be disciplinary fault.
Documentation is not a new concept. It's
No.
not like we just found out we have to document. I'm 100% with you. If you didn't document it, you didn't do it. So therefore, the prescriptions were wrong that went to the public. We're here to protect the public. And then we can kind of look through these A3.
Yeah, I'm just gonna voice, there are 26 allegations. And 14 charges. This is a lot. And I think it's just the tip of the iceberg, in my own opinion.
So
So
we
we're,
might
The
start-
ability to
yeah.
compound is not prohibitive, but it requires accurate record keeping. And this is not a case of I don't see how you can look at the volume here and say, well, this was just a scribe's error here and there, a human slip. This is intentional oversight.
the pattern.
Sure.
And if you intentionally do that with compounding, what are you doing? Probably where the concern really is.
I am personally not in favor of revoking the license. I am definitely in favor of prohibiting the compounding and disciplinary action.
We have two in that way, and Harold. and-
I mean, I respect Mr. Simpson's opinion on that, and I don't completely disagree with him. I just, I'm looking at this a little bit like probably what Lynn was alluding to. If we prohibit the compounding and take all of that away, we have seen those other issues that have come before us. We've seen issues with PDMP. Those obviously need to be fixed. But in my opinion, don't warrant revocation of his license.
Go ahead.
I didn't hear some of that. Am I understanding that everybody is in agreement that compounding ought to be taken away?
Oh, we hadn't gone through okay, yeah, well, Clint, yeah.
So the question is whether things in addition to compounding should be taken away. And
That would
am I
be the
the only
question.
person that feels that? I just didn't hear enough from the comments to understand that.
I think everybody agreed a disciplinary fine in addition to that. I don't want to speak for anybody else.
Yeah, but we don't have evidence of anything else. What we have before us are all compounding issues. We don't have any evidence against other things going on in practice. We could have speculation, but we don't have any evidence.
we wouldn't revoke based on the non-compounding allegations.
Well, if everybody feels that way, I'm not going to hold it up, but I've expressed how I feel about it, and that's fine. I just wanted to make sure I understood where we were.
Right.
I apologize for my hearing difficulty, but that's.
Well, we appreciate your opinion too.
Yeah, very much.
So I think we go A through 1 through 26 and get proven.
I've reviewed all of them. I don't have any questions about any of the allegations
Okay,
or charges, but,
so it's all proven and true and.
well, I
Well,
would say,
in your
please feel
opinion.
free to,
Everyone wants to look at that if they have any one or two that's a big issue, or if they believe it all, or.
Maybe something.
The only one that I just don't know if we decided on, or I guess I just don't understand is that the dog medicine or whatever.
With the wrong doctor,
With the-
therefore it
yeah.
was called.
I don't understand why West Side Pharmacy is like an option. Fiber,
Well, I guess the way I'm looking at that is Westside Pharmacy is not a real prescriber, and that
Right.
product requires a real prescriber.
right?
I think it's a veterinary product. I'm gonna
Uh-huh.
assume it's a prescription product. I'm gonna assume the 500 milligram naproxen is the Legend product. So, I mean,
Okay,
I think we kind of have to take that at face value. I understand there's an explanation for it.
but it is what it
In
is.
terms of entering it in the system, it's,
Again, document. The
Right, right.
document is the real answer. So is there anything between A1 through 26 that anybody else wants to discuss?
Do we need to address the Sudafed selling without certification? We didn't talk about it much, but it's in there. I don't know if that needs to be,
It's an A24.
yes.
Okay. I would
This
say
is
that that's
also,
prudent.
it's also a repeat. No, I just mean, do we need to do anything about that?
Oh, yeah, if you didn't have a certificate there, you get a certificate every year.
Hmm.
Or
And
every
that
2
that was in
years,
at least
uh-huh.
2 of the inspections, maybe
So, yeah,
3.
if it wasn't there, then that's another thing that had to be documented.
Okay, so A1 through 26 have no issues, then the charges 1 through 14.
I did actually have a couple of questions.
Okay. On there.
Um,
That's okay. Don't rush.
on C10. No, never mind. That one's. I think we did establish that that was compounded and that there was a commercially available product available. I understand he said on the diazepam, it might have been short at the time, but it was still true for the baclofen, which he just said he didn't know there was a commercially available product. So I guess that one is still valid. The only one I had a question about, and I don't know how y'all have looked at this in the past, but on C2, it says he's been negligent to the point that he's been deemed unfit or incompetent to practice pharmacy. If we weren't going to revoke the license, what would we do with that charge? That may be a question we have to go back on the record for, but,
I believe in the past, when we've asked that question, is that you're still saying that did happen.
okay,
In the board's discretion, we are saying this is the
okay.
punishment. or,
Okay.
you know,
For that,
discipline for that. But we can go back on the record.
No, I think you're right. Now that you say that.
Why don't we take it one by one and see if you have any concerns on the,
I just had a clarification,
Okay.
clarification because in regard to the Adderall prescription that was dispensed or entered as Adderall name brand, then according to Dr. Reagan, dispensed as generic Adderall, then whenever attention was brought to it, it was corrected.
but we didn't.
But based off of memory as to what was dispensed, I'm just a little confused about that. I'm not sure what I believe.
don't
I think
we saw a
actually
record
happened.
That it was reversed, did we? We just are told that, isn't that correct? Or does there a
It
record?
changed.
Okay, okay. Didn't remember that one, but okay. Okay, well,
So
that one was not proved or.
that's my question. Is it still
Or which charge is that?
Let's see. There are so many.
I mean, if it was changed based on memory, then technically it's still proven on our end, right?
Right.
And I mean, out of all of this, it's that one thing got reversed. It's not much
Right.
help.
Right, I was just curious as to our voting on the charges. And I,
I mean, that's a
Sorry.
very valid point.
here it is, it's 822.
Um,
I think if he goes and reverses it, then that proves that it was, it's true.
Okay. I just needed to clarify from my own
Okay.
understanding on that.
Clint, how do you feel
I'm
about?
still reading
all of
through
it?
the
Okay,
charges here.
I have no issues.
okay, Brian already told us he did not have issues. You don't have any issues with the stuff, it's just the,
Do you have any
No.
issues with the
Okay.
charges?
I'm fine with all of them.
okay. Does anybody need to go back on the record before we talk about how we would make a motion before we go back on the record? Okay, who would like to make that?
I can make the motion.
Okay,
What did we want the fine amount to be?
I think 20 or 25,000.
You want to make a motion on the record or off the record?
We're still discussing.
On the record.
discussion off the record.
I still am not certain. On the record or off the
We're
record?
gonna go back on the record to make the
Okay.
motion. We're still
All right.
deliberating.
We're deliberating.
I apologize. All right, we're back on the record.
No,
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 no.
Charlie, we're still deliberating.
Oh,
We hadn't finalized the motion yet.
okay.
Okay, so I think we know what your motion's gonna be, true and proven, right?
Yes,
Okay. So,
prohibited from compounding. And then.
of any sort, fashion, no two things together.
I would say he's not doing sterile compounding. I would just say, Clint, Lynn, would I say just non-sterile compounding?
I'd say all compounding.
Because we don't want to even add two creams together, we just don't want to.
Right.
Okay.
And two numbers for the fine, huge, so.
I think it's really big and I think that it's generous thing not to revoke the license. I think that was legitimately on the table. And if you look at the financial repercussions of that, then a $20,000 to $25,000 fine seems to me.
Go backwards this way. What do you think, Harold, on the,
The fine amount.
I'm not gonna take a position on that because I don't think there should be, I think. there should be
Okay.
termination.
okay. So we got,
25,000.
okay,
That's good with me.
because I can't vote.
Yeah,
Okay,
me too.
Clint, anything to?
It's fine, but pretty significant. What we're going off of on missing records alone, that's still, if you divide that out, that's pretty small amount per issue. Based on what we've done in the past.
no, I believe we want to go back on the record or try.
We're back on the record. The board has reached a decision in this matter. I'll turn it over to the president for a motion or motions and votes, Madam President.
Yes, if I could have a motion, please.
In the matter of Jonathan Reagan, PD 07823, case number 2025-047. Arkansas State Board of Pharmacy finds that allegations 1 through 26 are true. And charges 1 through 14 have been proven. Make a motion that for Dr. Reagan, he be prohibited from all compounding activities moving forward, and that we impose a disciplinary fine of $25,000 for the violations that have been set forth.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, and then I would say, is there any additional discussion? And I do have a question, Dr. Jolly, of anyone in that pharmacy should not compound, or just him, the person? Because,
No, I would say that would apply to the permit itself.
Well,
Right.
the case is not against the permit holder. And I would say as a pharmacist in charge, he can't oversee
As-
compounding, or as a pharmacist working in another pharmacy, he wouldn't be able to without coming back and appearing for the
Okay,
board.
so as the PIC can't oversee compounding within the licensed pharmacy. How would you say that, Clint? Because I'm just gonna say.
Yeah, I would just say can't. That may be a question for board staff, but I would just believe couldn't oversee or perform compounding.
Okay, I'll so amend it.
and we have a motion and a second. Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, the motion is.
All right, I want for the record that the motion did pass with one no vote. Staff, do you have that?
I have one point of
Sure.
question. Do we have a due date on the fine amount? Or we can impose it as staff, whatever you prefer.
End of the calendar year, or extend it a little bit. What do y'all want?
That's fine.
Fiscal year.
Fiscal year. So does your fiscal year run to June 30, July 1 to June 30?
June 30th would be the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, so end of the fiscal year, June 30th, 2026.
All right, I will ask staff to reduce that decision to writing. Make certain that Dr. Reagan, along with Mr. O'Quinn, gets a copy of that decision, along with information sheet cover letter that notifies them of their appeal rights moving forward. If there are no further questions or comments, I'll call this hearing to a close. Thank you. Thank you.
One o'clock.